Wilkins drops back in the pocket, lobs it up for Nikhil Harry. He leaps, makes the catch, dives into the end zone. Touchdown, Arizona State.
Manny from the 2 fakes the handoff, jumps over a defender into the end zone with the point. Wilkins.
The kick is up, and it is good. Down goes Michigan State, 16-13.
What's happening, y'all, and welcome into the house here on houseofsparky.com. I'm Blaine McCormick. He's Scotty Gange. It might have been a cold, gloomy day up in Seattle, but the gloominess, well, it didn't affect the flashy plays, huh, Scotty?
Yeah, Blaine, it was chilly out there. The Sun Devils are on a cold streak, but I'll tell you what, these highlights are hot. Sun Devils taking the trip up to Seattle to take on the Huskies and go for back-to-back in the greatest setting in college football, Husky Stadium. ASU looking for it against Jake Browning and the Dogs. Let's get into some action. First play from scrimmage, some trickeration, trick pass, but it's Chase Lucas, he's there. The INT, let's switch fields. Chase Lucas, are you kidding me? What a start for the Devils. And yes, turnover curls are a thing. Herm, what do you think?
That was a new one. I don't know. I just looked and went, what are we doing?
The game plan on Saturday night, feed Eno. You're just going to see it right here. Manny Wilkins, handoff. That's a 1-yard plow after giving him the ball about 12 times. Arizona State up 7-0, and some hangry Huskies in the stands not enjoying themselves, down 7 points. But the lead was short-lived for Arizona State. Here's Jake Browning up the middle for the pass to Aaron Fuller for 11 yards, 6 points off the 9-play, 80-yard drive. From hangry Huskies to happy Huskies. Here we go. 19-yard pass, and insane catch right here from Ty Jones gives the Dubs a 14-10 lead in the second. That is a high-powered Husky. ASU's bend but don't break defense, highlighted by this Taron Adams takedown, has kept things close at the halftime as they trotted off the field, just down 17-10. Coming off the half, it was costly mistakes for the Sun Devils. This one especially, a Trelon Smith fumble recovered by the Huskies, and then it all came down to Jake Browning rolling to his right to get the touchdown. It was big-time plays like this one right here that gave the Huskies a 27-13 lead going into the fourth quarter, and it was a party in the dog pack. Have to admire this while we can, Sun Devils. Nikhil Harry picks up a punt from the 4-yard line. That's 3 broken tackles, gets 2 guys around him more. There he goes up the sideline up to the 45-yard line. It's a scary return, but Nikhil Harry made things happen when he had to. Nikhil, my goodness. It was a late Wilkins TD drive that led onto it. 1-yard dive in for Manny. Took things down to 28-20, but they never got the ball back as UW danced their way to victory, leaving the Sun Devil offense mere spectators. And with that, the Sun Devils lose the battle in Seattle to UW 27-20, and for that reason, we bring in everybody's favorite analyst, Mr. Julian Paris. Julian, it wasn't ASU's best game, and it definitely wasn't their worst game either, but what were some takeaways that you saw that UW maybe exposed for Arizona State Saturday night?
Well, I thought that the couple of things that I saw was that they broke down the coverage of ASU's defense for sure. I think that UW did a great job of using their pocket passing to their advantage. With that, they got into the red zone quite a few times, and when they did, they used that to their advantage, and they took the opportunity to be able to score. And Jake Browning, of course, he had a field day. He threw for 15 of 22, over 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Not a bad day for a quarterback. I don't think so. And he basically played with whatever ASU was throwing at him. The defense for Washington was also great. You saw that it was kind of overwhelming for Arizona State. And as a result, they lost the ball a couple of times.
Yeah, it seems like good offense, good defense, good special teams, everything for Washington. But what were something that an Arizona State fan can smile about for ASU? What were some takeaways positive for the Sun Devils?
Well, I thought that Benjamin did a great job. I think that this was one of the games that he actually came out and he gave it his all. He's half of the reason that ASU was able to stay in this game. Mm-hmm. With that touchdown, it gave him some momentum, especially at the very beginning of the game to be able to get on the scoreboard. He found seams, he took advantage of the snaps that was given to him, and I think he had a great game. And I think this is only the beginning of what we're going to see from him this season.
Yeah, you talk about the escalated play of Benjamin, and another Sun Devil that seemed to take a lot of heat first play was Manny Wilkins, the quarterback. And Facebook, Twitter, and the House of Sparky comments, he was getting lots of heat for his poor play. Do you think it was deserved?
No, I don't think so. I think that Manny Wilkins, we've seen him in these kinds of situations where he hasn't played his best, but we've also seen him at his best, where he's been able to be that guy, orchestrate the offense, be able to lead them to a win. I mean, obviously we saw just a couple weeks ago, they were able to beat Michigan. We couldn't have been able to do that without the leadership of Manny Wilkins. I'm not saying that, I'm putting him on a stepping stool or anything like that, but I think we have to be able to give him a break. We have to allow the team to be able to see the mistakes that they made in that game, make the corrections, and then come out on Saturday against Oregon State. Because I think when they do that, they're going to be able to make those strides in the right direction.
Yeah, a few things to really push in the right direction for Arizona State. As you said, they're going to have that chance on Saturday against Oregon State. For one more time, this is our favorite analyst, Mr. Julian Paris, and now we're going to send it over to Blaine for the Blaze Radio Call of the Week.
You've heard me say it before. Nikhil Harry is a freak. Game by game, we all as spectators have been wowed by his playmaking ability, from leaping over DBs to breaking tackles and, well, everything in between. Saturday night saw another Harry highlight, and Blaze Radio's Braden Bell caught it all.
We'll see if that pays off for the Sun Devils. He'll run to his right side. Back at the 2-yard line, he's got room. Nikhil Harry gets a block at the 30-yard line, beats the punter and gets all the way out to the 44. Nikhil Harry with a big-time return. He went all the way back to the 1 and ended up with a great return for Arizona State. The playmaker makes a difference.
Now, Nikhil being Nikhil right there. For more Sun Devil action, be sure to tune in to Matt Kling and our very own Austin Burnett as the Devils take on the Beavs on BlazeRadioOnline.com. Well, you've seen the highlights, you've heard from Julian Paris, and just heard our Blaze Radio Call of the Week. And now it's time for Scotty and I to have a little bit of a chat. It's pros and cons, where we talk about the ups and downs of Sun Devil football. I've got the cons for today, so my first point, the road games have been a real struggle for Arizona State. They lost against San Diego, at San Diego, and then just coming off of a loss in Seattle. Granted, they are one-score games, and they've been both really good contending games against both teams. And I got to give credit to these teams too. They're really good in college football right now, but on the road, you got to be able to finish. I'll get to that point in just a little bit, but when you're on the road, you have to win those games. Otherwise, you're coming up with a split 500 schedule at the end of the year, and I don't think that's what Herm Edwards wants in his first season.
Yeah, Blaine, something I want to touch is you talk about how they were contending there, and they've given up 28 points, 27 points in the last 2 weeks. But I think the most important stat for the ASU defense is they do not give up big plays. They're one of only 3 teams in the FBS to not give up play over 40-plus yards in this entire season. So for that reason, it's kept them in the games. Yes, they've lost the past 2 weeks, but it's something to look forward to in the future, is this defense in the 3-3-5 scheme is not giving up the deep plays and keeping themselves in the game.
The defense has really held the Sun Devils in these big games, and you mentioned that they've been one-score games too. That's my next point about finishing. You have to finish on the road. If you're in those contending spots, when you're down by a touchdown or you're down by a field goal or in that situation, you have to be able to get your offense back on the field, get those repetitive plays down, and be able to get at least in a tie. Maybe you have a chance in overtime. We saw that with Stanford and Oregon this past weekend. Maybe Arizona State can replicate that in overtime. They've had overtime wins in the past, and we'll see if it is like that for future games, especially on the road.
Yeah, you talk about finishing, and I perfectly agree. I think that they should have finished against San Diego State. I don't even think they should have been in that opportunity in the first place. I think they should have dominated that game. But in the game against Washington, going into this season, I don't think many Sun Devil fans thought that they would stand much of a chance. And the new coach, lots of players leaving a young defense, the fact that they were in the game until the final 2-3 minutes, think of it, take away that one catch to the sideline that they had to review to give Washington the first down that eventually ended the game. If he doesn't catch that and the call stands, ASU has a minute and a half to go down and try to win the ball game. So I think that they've really kept a good job of keeping in that game, and they exceeded expectations for probably a lot of Sun Devil fans.
I like your point, Scotty. This is my last con of this segment, and it's kind of out of left field, but where is Kyle Williams? How have they not thrown the ball to him lately? It seemed as though that Nikhil maybe has overshadowed his talents, because he's a really good football player. He's one of those guys that can be your sixth man if you want, the dark horse of the team, right, if you're picking up what I'm throwing down, And it's like Kyle Williams was such an important part of the offense last year. I haven't seen him too much in the past couple of games. I think they need to get the ball to him a little more. Benjamin was very impressive last week against Washington. I think they need to toss the rock to him quite a few more times.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they do throw it to Kyle Williams, and perhaps the biggest pro of the entire week, maybe the entire season, is the Sun Devils are going home. Yeah. 2 losses away. thank goodness if you're a Sun Devil fan. They're coming home to Tempe. They play better in Tempe. Everybody knows they play better in the state of Arizona. And so I think for them, coming home is just a huge, huge upgrade, playing a lower tier team in the Oregon State Beavers. And I think it's really going to benefit them next week, and it could really relaunch their season. But we've been talking enough about Tempe. Let's go around the Pac-12 with our very own Austin Burnett.
Well, thanks, Scotty. Well, we had an early hashtag Pac-12 After Dark thriller over in Los Angeles as USC quarterback JT Daniels and company took care of the Washington State Cougars 39-36. All right, now let's move on over to the University of Arizona versus Oregon State as Khalil Tate, he threw for 2 touchdowns as the Wildcats steamrolled the Beavers 35-14 up in Corvallis. Now let's move over to our Pac-12 featured game of the week between number 7 Stanford and number 20 Oregon. Ducks quarterback Justin Herbert and the Ducks were in great position, up by 10 in the fourth quarter, but KJ Costello, can't sleep on him. He rallied his troops to a 38-31 fourth quarter comeback up in Eugene. Well, that'll do it for this week's segment of Around the Pac-12. Scotty, back over to you, my man.
Well, thanks, Austin. You made me a little dizzy going all the way around the Pac-12 for 3 games using 3 monitors. Luckily, right now, we're staying stagnant, but we've got 4 quarterbacks to talk about, but just 1 monitor, thank goodness. Well, Arizona State quarterbacks have thrown for 36 touchdowns so far this season, but Manny Wilkins has contributed just 7 of those altogether. Now, obviously, these stats have not counted towards the Devils, but it's interesting to see the talent that has come and gone through Tempe. 3 former Devils have earned their stripes in their respective campuses to date so far. Well, let's break it down. Remember Blake Barnett, the supposed to be savior of Sun Devil football? Well, before you could say Elite 11, Blake was on his way to Tampa, Florida as a grad transfer. Since then, he's led the Bulls to an undefeated 4-0 start with 12 total touchdowns. Not a bad beginning. Now, we talked about Brady White earlier this season in a feel-good story of the week, but it's worth recognizing that he's led Memphis to a 3-1 hot start with their sole loss coming at Navy by just 1 single point. And last but certainly not least, Bryce Perkins. His time in Tempe wasn't too joyful. After redshirting in 2015 and missing 2016 with an injury, Perkins made his way to Arizona Western Community College and is now the stud in Virginia. The Cavalier is wowing fans with his tight spirals and hurdling attack that he may have picked up from someone in the maroon and gold. Tempe's obviously a hard place to stay and seemingly a hard place to play, but it sure is refreshing to see what second or third chance has done for these 3.
Well, speaking of number 3, we're going back to basics and back to Benjamin. That was the approach Arizona State took when facing Washington, and it paid off. Running back Eno Benjamin just flourished against the Huskies, netting 108 yards on the ground as well as a touchdown. During both the matchup against Michigan State and San Diego State, Benjamin amassed under 30 yards in both games. In college football, you have to have the ability to run, and head coach Herm Edwards mentioned that earlier this week. He also mentioned that you have to have, quote, complementary football, not rely too much on the receivers or vice versa with the backfield. Totally fair enough that Eno is a guy that can do both. He currently ranks 6th among FBS running backs in receptions per game with 18, and that number could go up even more. Edwards mentioned that you have to get the running backs involved in the passing game as well. Along with talking about this scheme, he mentioned the word multi-dimensional. Really, its meaning is simple, involving several aspects. Well, that sums up the play of Eno Benjamin pretty well. A player that can give you 100-yard rush games, and when you give him the ball, he can create a lot of yardage off of the catch. The man is tough to tackle, so when Oregon State comes to the desert, look in the backfield, or even downfield, or anywhere on the field. And somehow, some way, you'll see a multi-dimensional offense give the ball to number 3. And that's why Eno Benjamin is our feel-good story of the week. Here's our Pac-12 top plays of the week, and we started off with Sean Brown slipping away from 1 defender, keeps going on his feet, 2 defenders, 3-4. You know what? He just trucks himself into the end zone for the touchdown. Take another look at this, Scotty. That defender's got butterfingers. These guys need to hit the weight room as he just topples into the end zone. 35-14, Wildcats win it.
Love that, Blaine. You can say Shun Brown. Well, he shunned off the defenders for 6 right there. But here's play number 2. This is Michael Pittman. Makes one man miss easily, and just for good measure, get off me, the stiff arm, and there he goes into the end zone. Let's have some fun. Woo! Somersault from Michael Pittman helps USC get their first win in 3 weeks. The Coliseum loves it, 39-36.
That place is always crazy. This game was nuts. Here's KJ Costello in overtime. Tip drill, and Parkinson comes down with it, the tight end for the Cardinal. Colby Parkinson off of his right hand, and then he just collects it himself for the game-winning touchdown in overtime. 38-31, the final score, and the Cardinal remains undefeated and grabs our #1 spot on the Pac-12 Top Plays of the Week. I tell you what, Colby Parkinson is a man to be reckoned with. Able to track that ball all the way up in the air and just get it. That's quite impressive.
Seriously, man, there's something about the Stanford tight ends that just must go down in history or something.
Yeah, this seems as though that he might be a good contender on the basketball court, and well, that's going to be a tough game for the Sun Devils when Stanford comes here on that Thursday night, but that's in the future.
That's down the road. Tomorrow night, we've got Oregon State coming to Tempe to take on the Sun Devils. For one more time, he's Blaine McCormick. I'm Scotty Gaines. For our producer, Noah Lau, and everybody here at the house, we thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.